Hey, I'm back with another fun transition idea, something you've never heard of before, some variation of the Newlywed or Newlywed game. Now, I know a lot of you do some version of this, but I wanted to give you a couple of ideas, things you can do with this to keep it from looking like every other version that people have seen before, and really personalize it and make it more fun. So we begin with this. One of the things that I do is I pass out cards to the tables. I explain the basic concept of the game to the guests before dinner, pass out cards and pens, and we let them write down questions that can be asked. I don't necessarily ask all of their questions. That's an important part of this. I've got my list, but if they think they're coming up with the questions, then there's more of a buy-in. A lot of the questions that they ask are things that I would ask anyway, but now they think they've come up with it, so it's really good. But you can't let the guests ask the questions, because they will ask, sex questions and fart questions and, all the stuff that you don't want to do. So beyond that, what we want to do is, gather the best of these questions and then ask them. I try to avoid using the actual shoes. For one thing, I think it's done to death. Beyond that, from a practical standpoint, getting shoes on, off, and back on, and transitioning quickly, I'm typically going from that at the end of the meal into the toast or maybe the cake, or there's something else happening right afterwards. So I don't want to have to deal with that. But I also think it can be much more personal than that. So we tend to use props that mean something to the bride and groom. So, when I did my trainer's wedding a few years ago, we used kettlebells for him, a real heavy one for him and a light one for his wife, and she's into horses, so we used a big plastic horse. I've used inflatable guitars for musicians and shopping bags like Nordstrom bag for the women, power tools, just every kind of sports equipment that you can imagine. One of my favorite ones, he was a CHP, California Highway Patrol. She's a firefighter, so we use a little axe and a police baton. Right, so you can use anything. I have a generic one that I use, which is a Ken and Barbie dolls, but she's dressed as a bride, he's dressed in a tuxedo, so we use that. The paddles with their names on them, blue and pink. I did a really fun one a few years ago. She was a Dodger fan, he was a professional baseball fan, the Giants, and so we used the big foam hands, Giants and Dodgers, right? And their family was very split, so it really made it fun with that. So those are some things you can do with the Newlywed game to make it very different. Beyond that, here's a couple of other fun things that we've done. You can't do this very often, but if you get the right couple, this is a blast. I include the parents. So instead of just the bride and groom out there, we bring out the bride and groom and their parents. So now you've got 3 couples playing. I even once did it with a set of grandparents, so 4 couples playing at the same time. Again, you have to be careful with the questions here, but you can really have a blast with this. And when all of the women answer one way and all the men answer another way, that can be a real blast. So you've got to have, obviously, parents who are still married and who would like to be a part of this. Not everybody would like to be in that sort of spotlight. So, I've played the game a million times, and I've done that, half a dozen maybe. So those are just some variations that you can do. I tend to call it the Newlywed game. I tell people early on that we're going to do it later, sort of preps them for it. Keep in mind, this is important. A lot of people know about this game. A lot of them have played this at their bridal shower. So they think they know the game, but they've got, it's Aunt Judy reading the questions, and she doesn't. Okay, so who's going to wear the pants in the family? Oh, ha, ha, ha. But this is all about being a great game show host, if you will. And so you've got to have witty responses ready. You've got to know when to laugh, when to shut up, when to let the moment breathe, do all those things. And you've got to know when to end it. You've got to end it before they want you to end it. That's really key, so that you don't drag this out. So I tell people, when I do this, sometimes I play it for a minute, sometimes I play it for 10 minutes. Typically, I probably, from the time I say, here's the first question to the last question, probably 3 minutes is sort of my norm. But if they're laughing and really eating it up and the crowd is totally into it, I can ask questions all day long. So there's not a set amount of time that I have for this. Hope those ideas help and you have a little fun with it. We'll see you next time.